Celtics Reddit podcast.
Back out to Smart. Fakes the pass all the time. Three. Bang! It's Williams screen. Lobs it up for Robert Williams.
Should he know? Taylor Brown.
Tatum. Durant, the long reach. Tatum crossover, pull-up jumper. It's good. 50 points for Jason Tatum.
Hello and welcome to the Celtics Reddit podcast. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. The Celtics, they dropped Game 2 in San Francisco to the Warriors, 107-88. Major bummer, so this will be probably a short pod, but they still got the split heading home to Boston. That's the main thing. Joining us to talk all about it, Jackson, aka Rickman Lives. Jackson, how's it going, man?
Good, man. Good. Not as good as, what day was it? Friday. But,
Yeah.
Okay. Things are okay considering, dude. How are you feeling after that?
Yeah, fine. I mean, like I said, we got the split, and it's crazy to think about. Like, no one at any point would have thought that Boston would have gone up 2-0 on the road. And so, Yeah, it was an epic blowout, and really the first time we've been blown out like that in a really long time. But walking away 1-1, I kind of want to say it's the best case scenario because, again, like, no one would have anticipated us going up 2-0. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, realistically, the best case scenario. I think going 2-0 up on the road, there would be something in my mind that would just be so loudly saying we're going to lose the next two. And we probably would have lost the next two. Like, it just would have been that level of craziness. Yeah, so honestly, 1-1 is completely fine. And it probably is the best case scenario, if you want to be realistic. So I'm still optimistic, but obviously we haven't experienced a blowout in a while. I was looking up the end of season fixtures just for shits and giggles the other day. And do you remember like losing by like 25 to the Pacers? Like while we were good, we just had that one-off night. Yeah. Well, I'm not saying that it was like this game, but it's like just that feeling of being like, this is done. Like well before the game was over. It's been a while.
Yeah, I think like the closest thing that comes to mind is the Game 1 loss to the Bucks, but it wasn't like an epic like inverted Geno time blowout. It wasn't like we lost by a lot, but it wasn't as 30, punishing as this one. Yeah, it's pretty fucking brutal. So let's just zip through this and hopefully spread a bit of Celtics cheer, because it's all good. It's right. We split the games in I keep wanting to say Oakland, but obviously it's San Francisco. Jackson, keys to the game. Why did this one go as badly as it did?
I gotta be honest, man. This game really felt similar to Game 1 to a certain point, and you probably know exactly what that certain point is. But one team starts a little bit better than the other, but for the most part in the first half, it's all pretty even. Then the Warriors go on a little run, but we answer with a run of our own. Ultimately go down, big in the third quarter, but then you pull it back.
Yep.
It was almost exactly the same as that we just didn't have that pullback. And obviously, Jordan Poole hitting a pull-up jump shot from halfway, sort of crushed anything we had. But it really felt similar to me in terms of how the game just went. So that, I'm optimistic in that sense that you were able to win one game playing three quarters almost identically, and then not win the other one. But I think the biggest key to the game, at least that I could see, was that Golden State was really defending the likes of Horford, Smart, and that perimeter like a lot more aggressively. I think it caused a lot of turnovers. I think it caused a lot of bad shooting. And I think it just gave the Warriors and like guys like Draymond Green like a lot more impetus to get going. So I think that was probably what I noticed. That was significant to me at least. What did you think?
Yeah, well, the defense, the perimeter defense, and really locking down the paint as well. I mean, really, I've just got circled here. The Warriors' defense through and through was amazing. Leading to 18 turnovers by the Celtics, and then many points off of turnovers by the Warriors. That's really like if you had to, write up on the chalkboard one reason as to why this game was so shitty. It was all those turnovers, and so much of that was because of that physicality by the Warriors. The first possession of the game, Draymond forces a jump ball by just jumping into Al Horford's space there, and it really set the tone for the rest of the Warriors. And a lot of people are hating on Draymond, and like he is annoying. He's super annoying, but he is basically just Marcus Smart at a different position. Obviously, a bit more experience, particularly this deep into the postseason. But I had to check myself from getting super annoyed by him because we have our very own version of that. And then there's Grant Williams as well, who's also super annoying, even to actual Celtics fans. But yeah, that physicality forced a lot of turnovers. Al Horford took 4 shots in this game. 4 shots and made one of them.
Yeah.
Crazy. So yeah, the physicality, I mean, and just Draymond. Really, Draymond was incredible in this game. I suppose you'd call it a bounce back just from how he spearheaded their defense. And like we got Draymonded, for lack of a better term. He was up in all of our shit from the tip, like in that literally the first possession, but then aggroing Jalen, and
talking to the refs and just like mucking up the game. And I think Jaylen Brown and a few others commented to that effect in the post game. And it was just too much for us. You know, not all of the turnovers were forced, but they were influenced by this Draymond Green experience. So I think that's recoverable. We can respond to that and adjust to that in Game 3 and the subsequent games. But it just had us completely discombobulated in this one. Does that sound fair? Yeah, and even me as a viewer talking about getting discombobulated was when he, by all accounts, should have had a second technical and been ejected at the end of the second quarter. You have Steve Javie on TV saying, "Yeah, no, we would think about this and we would probably not call it as to, you know, eject someone," which we're all thinking and we all know it's true. But for them to just say it like outright and then not to be a double technical called on it when it is in every single other game is just a bit jarring. And I think that's the kind of shit that gives Draymond Green powers. It's mucking it up. It's the chaos. It's kind of getting away with that and just, you know, something that is like he kind of bends the game to his will without using much basketball skill, which is a little bit like harsh to say. But, you know, his biggest strength is getting in people's minds. So I think if he was ejected, that would have been a big advantage to us, but he didn't, and I think it fed into the overall like vibe that he was going for.
Yeah, and a little bit like he had already kind of affected the game and the Warriors at that point, like because I'm sorry to keep harping on about that first possession, but like right from the get-go, he came out and was like super Draymond, and it was punishing and
on the guy who was the player of the game last game too. It's like a statement, you know. Jump ball.
Just
no other way to put it.
And like, you know, it's weird because the Celtics, you'd think at this point they'd be used to the physicality, like going back to the Bucks series and then the Heat series. But this was brutal. It was like the physicality of those series is but also the elite offense and 3-point shooting of the Warriors all rolled up into one like brutal attacking force. So pretty tough, but would you agree that it's not anything that we can't respond to in Game 3?
Oh, certainly not, dude. I honestly think, and this could come back to haunt me saying this, but I honestly think we've played our toughest series already. Whether it was the Bucks, whether it was the Heat, I'm not too sure. It depends on like what you're really judging, you know, toughest by. But I think as physical as Golden State can get, I think we can match them and if not be better than them. I think the reason they were so much better than us tonight was we played as if we were pretty satisfied to have one game already. Mm-hmm. At least it seemed that way. I'm sure they would tell you otherwise, but there just wasn't as much urgency. And I guess it's natural when you go a game down, there's always going to be that, you know, that response, particularly from a team that's won 3 titles in 7 years or whatever it is. But I just think they were much more up for it and we just weren't fighting as hard.
Yep, totally. And third quarters as well. And like we just didn't have that response, that fourth quarter response in us in this game. But a Reddit user, Celtics DDTACCT, hope I've said that right, said in the post-game thread, we've been outscored 73-38 in third quarters so far in the series in 2 games. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's mental.
Yeah, and like
44 points, is it? Matt's right.
45, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
73 minus 38. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Is what that equation equals. But that's not going to cut it. I thought that the Warriors ran their offense differently in this game, and they seem to run a lot more pick and roll, just like straight up pick and roll with Steph Curry as the ball handler. I was so convinced of that I went to Synergy and checked the stats on this. So per Synergy, 30 total pick and roll possessions in game 2 versus 25 total in game 1, which is not that much of a disparity. Like, I thought it would be like 10 or 15 more, but even the commentary team were calling it out that they were changing the way that they ran their offense, and rather than all of this sort of clever off-ball screening and movement and guys flaring out and hammer screens and pistol actions and stuff like that, it was just like fucking pick and roll. Draymond Green and Steph Curry, and they were really effective at it. Also, no Iguodala, like one less person for us to sag off of. I think that was an underrated feature as well.
Yeah, no, the personnel that they did bring in, namely, Gary Payton was a massive upgrade over Iguodala, offensively and defensively, and I thought they got a lot more out of, Otto Porter. I don't think he scored as much as he did in game 1, but I just thought he was effective when he was in. Bielitsa too, I think, hit a couple of buckets in the second quarter when we had a bit of a lead that just brought it back. So I even just think the guys that they brought in, the adjustments that they made, but just worked so much better.
So painful as well, because we started off the game so well. Like, in our playback stream, when Jalen went on his huge run in the first 2 minutes, I was like, all right, start manufacturing the title rings for the Celtics. Like, this looks amazing. And then that physicality just wore us down. And then with the physicality came, we're going to talk about it right now, the refereeing, which sucks to talk about refereeing and the referees after a game of basketball featuring, 10 or more fantastic athletes. But we've got to do it. Physicality and then the refereeing leaning in one direction in terms of like letting that physicality go or not. And in this case, very much in favor of the Warriors. There's a post here by Memu Karobi said the Celtics are 13-7 this postseason. They are 1-4 in games officiated by Zach Zarba, 12-3 otherwise. Like you sort of mentioned in our Slack, Jackson, some frustrations with the referees. I think that's pretty commonplace among all Celtics fans right now. What's your take on the refereeing in this game?
It's always the knee-jerk reaction to stuff with the refs. I think once you sort of like step back from it and you let yourself simmer down, blaming the refs really it's pointless to a degree. I'm not saying I'm not going to do it. I think they absolutely deserve being moaned about. But at the end of the day, like you can't put yourself in a position to have games turned by the referees. Mm-hmm. But having said that, I think the Gary Payton foul call on Jaylen Brown, which gave him his second, was ridiculous.
Oh yeah,
I think
what the hell?
We only saw one angle of his first foul where I think he pushes Kevin Looney, but like he pushes him about that far away, and Kevin Looney slides across the court, and it's like there's no way that's exaggerated and bullshit. So he has two crap fouls that way. We've already touched on the Draymond thing. The Derek White non-technical on Jordan Poole, which kind of stopped a fast break. Again, annoyed the shit out of me at the time, but hard to say if anything would have come out of it. But you are left with this sense of, just these, you can remember these shit calls going against you, the sort of pivotal moments in the microcosm of the quarter. But that thing with Zarba being like, we're 1-4 with him, and the one was the buzzer beater against Brooklyn. Yeah. It's like,
that's right.
Who is this guy? Like, I never seemed to hate him that much, but now I'm like, man, fuck this guy. Like, what's the go?
Yeah, and they reviewed the shit out of that buzzer beater as well. Like, he certainly tried to, rob us of that win.
He did too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's rather than any one moment, the Draymond thing or the Jordan Poole non-tech call on Derek White there, which, frustratingly stopped a potential fast break there. It was more just like they were calling us for just minor contact on our defensive end, while it felt like we were drawing similar levels, if not greater levels of contact on our offense. Guys like Tatum, go into the hoop and trying to draw fouls and not getting those same calls. And I don't know, like I don't want to live in a world where I believe that like referees are actively influencing the outcome of games, because that takes away from the enjoyment of the NBA. Sometimes, and I'm not saying that that's the case, and it's difficult, we're not necessarily objectively looking at this because we're massive Celtics fans. Sometimes it's so hard to suspend your disbelief there, like it's so hard to look beyond that. It just seems like they're really doing their best to influence the outcome of the game. Am I wrong or what?
No, you're not wrong. You're completely right. And even when Steve Javi was saying, where we're going to consider whether or not he's got a technical already before he gets thrown out. Well, now you are subjectively interpreting the rules. Mm-hmm. Now, for a neutral and for a product that is, the NBA, I understand where that's coming from. Certainly if I was a neutral, one of the best players got chucked out in the second quarter of the finals, then that's going to tarnish the viewing experience to a degree. But subjective calls means you can just basically rig the game. You know what I mean? Under the guise of, I'm calling it like this way, or we have to let them play, or we have to do this and that. And it's a very fine line that they skirt with it. And when it goes against you, it sucks, so much, so much. So yeah, it's my least favorite thing about the NBA, the officiating. And I'm sure it's a very tough job, and the majority of the time they do it well. But when it's bad, it's really bad. And and I think the key word is just consistency. You just want to see it consistently called, and then you just live with the result of that. But that's not the world we live in. And I think the good news is if we go down 2-1 or 3-2 or something like that, then I think we'll probably get it in our favor. Yeah,
which is so weird. Like
it is.
It's crazy, but I don't disagree with you at all. There's a Reddit user, Vortex Cow, who said, at least we got one of the Zaba/Tony Brothers games out of the way. Here's to hoping we take both in Boston and we fix our third quarters. I just want to touch on shot attempts in this game very quickly because some of those stood out to me. And then we'll get to cause for optimism, which is where I want to spend the bulk of our time on reasons to be optimistic.
I need it.
So Robert Williams, 1 shot attempt. Al Horford, 4 shot attempts, which we got to. Marcus Smart, 1 for 6. Grant Williams, 2 for 2. Yeah, they really nullified us on the perimeter, and where we saw a lot of production from those guys in game 1, we just didn't see that at all. It was completely shut down by the Warriors, and it's funny because Draymond Green in the post game and on his own podcast after game 1 was like, yeah, those guys just aren't going to shoot that well again, which was true, but only because they completely changed up their defense on those guys. It wasn't like they were just like, oh, that's not going to happen again. We're just not going to do anything about that because we don't believe they'll play like that way again. They absolutely adjusted their defense to take it away from those guys, and particularly Al Horford. They were right up on him again from the first possession and took him out of his game. But absolutely, that's something that he can respond to. So I'm not worried about that at all.
Yeah, neither am I. It's so weird. We shot a better percentage from 3 than we did from inside the 3-point line, and I think there was
crazy.
The game of the Bucks series, I think, where we were great from 3, but we were terrible from everywhere else. Mm-hmm. We ended up losing. Maybe it was a Heat game. I can't remember, but yeah, no, they did adjust the defense to make it harder for us. But if the 3 still happen to go down, but they did take away a lot of you're right, the paint and and 2-point shots, which are crucial. So I think Draymond is right in the sense that, you don't have to worry about Derek White, Marcus Smart, and Al Horford going lights out for 3 collectively together, the game afterwards. But that's not to say that 1, 2, or all of them again could get hot, to a similar level in game 3 or 4 or 6 or 7. So yeah, I think when he says that, I think he's just, he's doing his part to say everything's all cool, but they're a championship winning team for a reason. They're definitely making adjustments, and they're definitely saying the right things about it too. So it's our turn to adjust now, I think is all I have to say.
Yeah, I really respect Draymond Green in the same way.
So do I.
Because of how we love Marcus Smart, it's you can see yourself as a Warriors fan feeling exactly the same way, if not, greater about Draymond Green. But having said that, feeling the hate started to creep in. It's a final series. He's our opponent. Really, it's starting to bubble up inside of me. And even for kind of lovable players like Steph and Gary Payton as well, it's starting to feel man, fuck that guy. Even though I kind of love them. Should we talk about points for optimism? Enough about this negative stuff. We lost this game, but ultimately we got out of San Fran with the split. Where does your mind wander to, Jackson, when you start to sort of, the dust settles from a disappointing game? Maybe you're going for a walk and you're like, oh, okay, everything's all right because blah. What's blah for you?
Where everything's all right because I still don't think we've played like to our best for a long time in these playoffs, to be perfectly honest. Maybe game 7 against the Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was probably the last time we were really at our best. And obviously we blew out the Heat, a couple times. But really the last time I was just like, fuck yeah, this is on. Now, maybe game 6. I'll take that back. Probably game 6 against the Heat now that I've remembered that. But we don't do it often enough. Like I can't remember the last time Brown, Tatum, and like one other guy were just like lights out, and then someone off the bench as well. Like we got that in the fourth quarter of game 1, but we didn't see it the whole way through. So I think there is so much room for improvement in this squad, individually and collectively. And the fact that we've, underlined by that we've got the split. We got one game. We got the game that we needed to. We still have a home court, even though our home court record is not as good as the road one. But even still, like to go 2-2, going back to Golden State, San Francisco at 2-2. I'm still confident that we're good enough to win, and I think it's going to take a team effort to do it for sure. But I think we're due. I think is the long roundabout way of what I'm saying. I think we're due a really good 4-quarter performance that the Warriors aren't going to be able to live with, and I think we're going to get into one of them too.
Well, yeah, and just to readdress what we've already talked about, we looked so good in the first 5 minutes of this game, and then there were just some things. I don't know if they were out of our control, but the physicality and the refereeing combined just messed us up, and it just feels like something that's something that the team can talk about and prepare for future games. And so, you would hope, despite all of the playoff and finals experience that the Warriors have, that's just something that we can adjust to. Because I don't know, this postseason, it feels like it started a lifetime ago. I was watching the highlights from Nets game 1 the other day, and it feels like I was a different person back then, And so with that said, it's like we've learnt so much, or the team surely has absorbed so much experience in this, with all the adversity that they've seen in this postseason run. So you'd like to think that this is like kind of nothing to them, right? And they just go, okay, like that's how they're going to play. That's how they're going to ref. Okay, well, we're going to go with this game plan and adjust to it. My other cause for optimism is that Derek White has been fucking awesome. Like, especially in game 1, but he was pretty great in this game as well. His shooting efficiency doesn't read out well. I think it was like 4 for 12 or 4 for 13 at the end of the game. But his defense, his switching on defense, his pushing the ball, his pace on offense, and him penetrating the defense and getting into the paint in a game where we struggled to do just that. He was often putting us in a good position with his penetration. Missed a couple of bunnies. I think both teams missed a few bunnies in this game, which is just to say that the pressure on the rim is almost suffocating and causing guys to be a little bit shook at the rim. But, Derek White through and through, that new dad energy, he's been awesome. And you just feel like it's like we've got an extra like magazine for that's probably a really bad analogy to use, but
perhaps, but
yeah, more ammo, also a terrible analogy. You know what I'm trying to say though? Like we've got a bit more oomph about us, to use a gun neutral term. Derek White, I love that guy.
It's hard not to dance around the gun analogies when we're talking about like shoot and stuff. So anyway, no, Derek White's been excellent. I think new dad energy bounce, whatever you want to call it, is totally real. We need Tatum to, in about 3 months' time, probably get another kid on the way. Time that well. Yeah, man, you get a little bit of everything from Derek White, as you said, getting into the paint. We saw his 3-point shot in game 1. The defense, I think that Curry blocked layup that he had, and even took the ball back and got rid of it.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So, and he's just coming into form at like the right time. So as much as you want to see, I guess in a tangent here, as much as I want to see like all of our guys like win the title, like I feel like Derek White getting the title is like real, along with Horford as well too. That's like one for Brad Stevens. You know what I mean? That's a Stevens move. He brought that guy in, and that guy delivered for us. So
yeah, totally.
I love to be able to tie it back to that, but I'm so stoked he's on our team. I remember when the trade happened, we were so stoked to have him. It didn't quite pan out throughout the, in the preceding months and weeks following that. But no, we're getting the best Derek White at the right time. And he's definitely got like another, game 1 caliber kind of performance in him, or multiple, throughout this series. So if we see that, we're good.
Yeah, he's playing his best basketball as a Celtic right now in the finals,
Easy.
which is thank you, Derek White, for playing your best basketball in the finals. We really need that. Other points for optimism. We sort of covered. I've got a few listed here, but we already covered them. The notion that the Celtics would have gone up 2-0 on the road is just insane. So 1-1 again, kind of best case scenario. The only other thing I had was just watching our dudes in the finals, like watching little Jason Tatum. Like remember when he was only 19? You know, Jaylen Brown, a little flat top, deer in the headlights, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, drafted him in 2014, the roller coaster. And it's like, these guys are like totally holding their own in the finals against the like dynastic Warriors. That's just fun. And I've had to sort of pinch myself a few times and sort of remind myself to just kind of enjoy it no matter the outcome, which is maybe a loser's mentality, but just we love these guys and just watching them play finals basketball and be the subject of the NBA media machine's like full focus is just so good. Like as fans, we're in a fantasy land right now. It's awesome.
Yeah, you know what I like the most about that? It's like when they get the international spotlight on them and they do something awesome. They're like, oh wow, that's what a great defensive play by Marcus Smart or Derek White or Grant Williams. It's just like, yeah, I know. I've been saying this to everyone for months and no one's listening. It's him. It's like now you see him do it in the finals. You feel really, you're right. It's like being a proud parent, seeing these players perform the way they are. I remember the thing that I was going to say before. One thing that I'm super optimistic about. Bounce backs are a real thing these playoffs. You've got the Tatum bounce back, which granted didn't get us to win today, but a terrible performance in game one, bounces back to, pretty solid scoring outing, through 3 quarters at least. Obviously didn't play the fourth or very little of it, so he could have had more if it was competitive. But also bouncing back after a loss. 7-0, I think, so far. Am I right on that? 7-0? Yeah.
We're undefeated, essentially, yes.
I believe in the bounce back.
Hell yeah.
So I believe we're going to win the next game. And all we have to do is keep bouncing back, and we're champs.
Totally, yeah. So we've earned that right in winning
Absolutely.
one game in Golden State there. Okay, game 3 predictions to wrap this one up. The first point I had there, Jackson, was Celtics bounce back.
Is the bounce back real?
The other points very quickly, and then we'll throw to you. Adjust to the physicality, which we spoke about. Take care of the ball. Easier said than done, but huge. And as part of that bounce back thing, like thinking back to the Bucks and the Heat series, any games that we lost, like clearly because of our high amount of turnovers, there was a bounce back in the next game, and that was clearly this objective to really take care of the ball. So after a game like this, you can only imagine that's going to be the case for game 3 as well. And TD Garden is going to be insane. Me and Wayne Spooney are going to be up in the balcony there, screaming our guts off, taking recordings of us watching the game and creating content for the YouTube channel, but mostly just like screaming at Draymond Green and trying to have a good time. Prediction-wise for you for game 3, Jackson, I feel like you've kind of already mentioned the bounce back. Obviously, you think the Celtics are going to win. Is there anything like specifically you think they're going to do different to get that win in game 3?
I'm not savvy enough to say what we're going to do to adjust to their aggressive defense. I think Smart's going to have a better game. I think you're going to get either Grant Williams or Peyton Pritchard having a good game. And I think it's going to be tight, but I think we're going to win by about maybe 7 or 8 points. Said and done.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I think that sounds about right. You'd expect a response from the Celtics and for them to take care of home court, at least in game 3, in front of that insane Garden crowd. All right, anything else on game 3 or anything else that we've discussed on this pod, Jackson, before we wrap this one up?
I hope Time Lord's okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably the only lingering negativity they've got. Sorry to just jump that back after trying to be positive, but I think if Time Lord is obviously very important to this. If he does sit game 3, I probably wouldn't be that upset, to be perfectly honest. With one eye on game 4, obviously, given the quick turnaround between 3 and 4. So yeah, I think as long as he's okay and he can come back, we should be all right. But yeah, prayers up, I suppose, to Robert Williams' knee.
Yeah, the double big thing is so interesting. There are times where it looks great, particularly defensively, and there are times where it looks like a hindrance. So whether Time Lord doesn't play or if we bring him off the bench, and go, 4 out, 1 in, or 5 out with Al Horford. Could be interesting just to sort of mix it up a little bit and keep the Warriors guessing. I haven't checked the stats on this, but I feel like our most productive lineups were sort of 1 big and 4 shooters around Al. So going to be interesting to see. Very, very excited. Just so excited that the Celtics are in the NBA Finals. It's just the best. All right, that's going to do it for this one. Keep your shit up, Celtics fans. The Celtics stole one on the road and are heading home with home court advantage and now have a couple of days rest and recuperation. Jackson, love your work, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for cheering me up, man. Appreciate it.
Likewise. All right, folks, we'll be back with another pod after Game 3. Until then, go Celtics. Peace.